Hi, welcome back. It's Jessie again. Today I would like to talk about love. I guess it is one of the topics that most, if not all, of us are interested in, really. I mean, um, all the people in this world, most of them would die for love. And I actually wanted to talk about this topic about a couple of weeks ago because, it was Valentine's Day. Yeah, it's the day you celebrate so-called loving relationship, whether usually mainly between man and woman, but of course it can be between friends or between even mother and daughter. So I gave my mom a gift as well. But anyway, and also this is the topic that I really wanted to talk about for quite quite long time, quite a long time really, because because if you ask me, what's the one what is the one thing or one concept that most people are misunderstanding or don't know even, I would say love. I remember when I was in law school back in Korea, he was a commercial law lecturer. And at the start of our semester, he suddenly gave us a riddle. He asked, what do you think is the biggest lie that one man can say? He said, think about it for this semester and give me your answer if you think anything, if you can think of anything. And although I didn't give him any answer until the end. I I instantly knew what the answer was. I thought to myself, isn't it the saying, I love you? And at the end of the semester, it was the answer. He says, I love you. and but he didn't give us his reason why he thinks that is the biggest lie that one man can say. And he just said, well, think think about why it is, in your own way, but I'm not giving that to you. But in my case, the reason I thought it is the biggest lie that one man can say is because, as far as I know, love, true love, is something that man cannot do by himself or by herself. I mean it. I mean, like I said in previous videos, after our first parent ate that fruit of knowledge, our nature becomes sinful. In other words, our nature becomes selfish. And most, if not all, people would agree that one of the biggest characteristics of love is selflessness, right? Isn't it? Self-sacrificing, selflessness. That is one of the biggest characteristics of love. And yet we human are, in our nature, selfish. So it is really contradicting our own selves. And they all say the hardest battle you can have is the battle against yourself. I mean, most people would say this. That is the battle you can safely say you will almost lose. You will almost always lose. Because really, I mean, fighting against someone else, that is easy one. But fighting against yourself, that's really impossible unless you have some other help from outside. That's why overcoming, for example, drug addicting or alcoholism is so difficult. And people like that are, why it's people like that are so struggling to overcome that, because it is the fight against themselves. And love, so for us, for human, doing love or loving someone else is really against our own nature, something against our own nature. So that's why I thought and I think the biggest lie that one man can say is love. And yet, what does the Bible say? Jesus said, love each other. Love your God with all your heart, with all your strength, with all your might, and love your neighbor just as you love your own body. So basically, Jesus is ordering us something that against our nature. But again, Bible says God never asked us to do something impossible. God knows that is impossible for us to do. If God asks something to us to do, then he knows it is because he knows that we can do it. But not by ourselves, really. We can do it only when we are with him. So today's topic really starts with one small question or discussion with my mom about early this week. We talked about what happened in Genesis chapter 3 when Adam and Eve ate that fruit. You see, when you read it closely, there is something you might feel, what is that? Why? Like this. It is the sin that after they ate that fruit, it says they felt ashamed. And then they covered themselves. They sewed fig leaves and made clothing and covered themselves. It says that. Well, I looked at different versions of Bible in English, especially, and it's not really clear what kind of clothes or what kind of clothing they made, exactly. But we can safely assume it was some sort of type of apron or girdling, more exactly. There are versions of Bibles which use these words. So basically, what they covered was their private part, more exactly their genital part, really. So they just cover here. I mean, of course, if you think about it, of course, it is of course because it was their very first clothing. So of course they didn't have any skills of making clothing at all, and so there was no way they could make such beautiful garment or whatever. No, so they just made some sort of covering, really, and they just covered their genital parts. And I asked myself why they felt ashamed about that part particularly. I mean, they didn't because when I was young, my mom and I had this kind of conversation. You know, there is a public bathhouse culture in South Korea, so it might be shocking, but we don't wear any clothing there. So we're total strangers. We all naked and take baths together. A little bit shocking, I know. But that's a kind of culture. And one time when we are in in the public bathhouse. Many South Koreans enjoy that actually. So one time my mom and I were there, and in a kind of joking mode, we said, what are you gonna do if suddenly something happens and the ceiling of this building is gone and someone is looking down at us? For example, like from the helicopter or using a drone like this. And where would you cover? My mom asked. So I was like, of course, like somewhere here, like that. And my mom said, "What? Why would you bother cover there? You just cover your face. That's the easiest thing to do, isn't it? No matter what they see, all the other body parts of you, as long as they don't recognize who you are, it's fine, isn't it?" I was like, well, that makes sense. Yeah. Uh, so that's kind of a thing. If they felt ashamed, why they just didn't cover their face? Adam and Eve, maybe probably it's because they already knew each other, so there is no point really covering their faces. But still, why did they feel ashamed, particularly for that part of their body? So, uh, so logically, if you think about it, that means they felt ashamed about about something about their sex or sexualities or a sexual relationship between them. So I actually said that I guess probably maybe Adam and Eve had sexual intercourse before they ate that fruit. Otherwise, how on earth they could know that that part is something special of their body? They knew that part of their body was something special, and that's why they felt ashamed at that very moment. But but then the question goes on. Then why did they feel ashamed about their sexual relationship when after they ate that fruit? I mean, it's nothing like they cheated each other, right? There was no other man or woman. And even today, we don't really feel ashamed. You don't have to really feel ashamed about having a sexual relationship with your legal spouse, right? With your partner. Having a sexual relationship with your partner is not something you need to feel ashamed. And yet, Adam and Eve felt they were ashamed at that moment. Why? So after after a lengthy discussion, we came to conclusion it was probably because at that very moment, the very moment they ate that fruit, they felt their connection with God was severed. And as soon as they felt that connection was severed, their spirit died. So that means they lost God. They lost God from their within their spirit. And as soon as they lost God, they felt ashamed about their relationship, especially sexual relationship. Why? Because we came to this conclusion. Because sexual relationship is the one relationship that we call as loving relationship or making love, more exactly. That's the other way how we call that relationship or how we call that act, isn't it? Having sexual intercourse, when we put it moderately or more in a kind of a noble way, we say they're making love, isn't it? So that's really that act should be with love, true love, all the time. That's something we still have on our base, on our base as a base of having sexual relationship, isn't it? Um, but then, what is love? We need to answer. We need to say this. What is love? Love is, well, you might think of the first thing come up to on top of your head would be chapter 13 of First Corinthians. Well, love is here. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It does not proud. Yada yada yada. What Apostle Paul used quite lengthy words to describe what love is. But if you condense it into one word, what is love? Love is God, isn't it? Bible says God is love. If God is love, then the other way around should make sense as well, isn't it? If God is love, then love is God. And you can actually find it out quite easily. If you put the word Jesus or God in the place of love in this chapter 13 of First Corinthians, it makes perfect sense. For example, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it does not proud. Well, let's put Jesus in there. Jesus is patient, makes sense. Jesus is kind, of course. Jesus does not envy, Jesus does not boast, Jesus is not proud. Yeah, totally makes sense, isn't it? So, in other way, God is love. Love is God. Then what does it mean? To have a true meaning or to have a true sexual relationship as God plans it or as God made as it should be, then in that relationship, even during that having that relationship, there must be God. So having sexual relationship without God is something that you should be ashamed. That's the logic of the Bible. And that's why I believe, that's why our first parent, Adam and Eve, felt ashamed at that very moment. Because as soon as they ate that fruit, they lost God. In other words, there was no love in them. And yet, they still had their body that can make so-called loving relationship or the act of love. And because of that, they felt ashamed. They felt more exactly guilt. That's what they felt. Because now, without God, it is something that you should not have, or you could not have actually. And yet, they still had their bodies, so they could still do that. And that's probably, in their deep instinct, they instantly knew that. It's something we cannot or we should not have without God. And yet, we're having this. And so, I guess, nowadays, one of the things that break my heart most about love is that too many people are considering that love and sex are just two different words meaning the same thing. No, they're not. They can never be. The moment I felt this anger, I should say, so strongly was, I have no particular offense to Mr. former President, Mr. Obama, but I felt this anger so strongly when, you might remember, there was a case that USA Supreme Court judged that about homosexuality. Now, the marriage between homosexuality should be treated as legal or just like normal marriage. And about that decision, the former president, Mr. Obama, tweeted on his Twitter. I think he said this: "Love wins." I was like, no way. That's not love. That's not love. That's just sex. I always say that if you consider love and sex are really the same thing, then every mother should have sex with their children. Can you imagine that? Oh, that is by saying that, it already makes me disgusting. No, love and sex, they might have some common area or common elements, but they are not the same thing. No way. And yet, so many people in this world are considering that sexual relationship is, if you feel desire or really sexual desire towards someone, then you confuse that you are loving that person. No. You need to check whether it's love or lust, really. How can you distinguish it? Like I said, the first Corinthians chapter 13 gives a very good guideline to how to check this. Do you feel patient for that person? Can you be patient with that person? Will you be kind no matter what that person does? And it still goes on, so it does not boast, it does not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking. Not self-seeking means, in the Message Bible, it says something in a way like this: it does not put me first always. It's not me first. It's always you first. So, and Jesus also said, right, love your neighbor just like you love your own body. I heard one famous pastor describe this like this. It means if you love your partner or your spouse just like you love your own body, then it means after you come back from your work, you're tired, you're exhausted, all you want to do is just lying on your sofa and relaxing. But that would be probably the same for your spouse, isn't it? Your spouse, whether that person was in the house for all day doing house chores, or that person was outside for her or his work as well, that your spouse would be just tired as you are. And if you truly love your spouse, your partner, as your own body, then you would say, you would do to your spouse what you want to do. Isn't it? That's really the meaning of loving your spouse just like your own body. So you would say to your spouse, oh, take seat here, lie on the sofa and rest. I'll do all the cleaning and I'll make the dinner and like that. So yeah, and just by hearing that, I guess many of you would instantly think, oh my gosh. Yeah, it is tough. It is difficult. It is not easy. Love is not easy. That's why even my commercial law lecturer said, I love you is the greatest lie of all mankind. Because it is not something you can do by your own strength. And there's also a great scene in a movie called Fireproof. It's a Christian movie. I guess most of you would know that what this movie. But it's about it is really about love and marriage relationship. And in that movie, I guess in about the middle of that movie, there's a scene that this male male hero and his father having conversation, and there this main guy, he in annoyed voice he asked his father, how can I love someone who keeps rejecting me over and over and over again? And his father says, well, that's a very good question. And then his father goes on and says this, you cannot give what you don't have. It is very true, isn't it? We cannot give what we don't have. I mean, for example, I'm good with, I'm not that good, but I'm a little bit good at cooking or making tea like that. So I can serve someone with my dish or with a cup of tea, like something like that. But I cannot help them with about a work that needs really great power, or for example, I cannot help them by lifting very heavy objects or something like that, because I don't have that much power. I cannot give what I don't have. And that's the thing. We human don't have love really of our own. So then how can we love? Well, Jesus orders us to love each other. How on earth are we supposed to love others when we don't have one? Simple. We need to receive it from God first. And only then we can love other people. So, long story short, I mean, this love applies to every relationship or every aspect of our lives, really. Here in chapter 13, 1 Corinthians, Apostle Paul opens this chapter saying like this, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have no love, it means nothing. It's like just a sounding gong. And even if I have all the knowledge and I can prophesy all about the future, if I don't have love, it's nothing. If I have faith to move mountains, still I have no love, then I am nothing. If I give all my possession to the poor and surrender my own body to the flames, but do all that without love, I gain nothing. There is no benefit I can get. The surprising thing is actually, it means if you say all this in other way, it means you can actually give your own body to the flames without love. Isn't it scary? But there have been people who did such a thing. They literally lit fire on themselves because of usually what they believe, or to protest to something like that, not out of love. So Paul says, no matter what you do, it's not about what you do really. It's about whether you do it with love or out of love or not. If you don't do it with love, then it means nothing. Before God, it counts as nothing, zero. So that means, so if I um, rephrase it in more modern days term, I would say, then it means no matter what we do in all our daily lives, whether we go to work, whether we do house chores, whether we say hi to our neighbors, if we do it with love, then it counts before God. If there is no love in our heart while we doing those, it means nothing before God. That's what Paul says. Now, let's rephrase this one more time. What did I say love is? Love is God, right? So it means no matter what we do, if we need to do all those things with God, within God. So that's why also Jesus said, if you don't, no matter what you do, if you don't do it by faith or with faith, it's sin. It stands in the perfectly same line. So, long story short, no matter what we do, we need to do all those things with love, with God, more exactly, with the Holy Spirit resides in me, always listening to Him, always feeling Him. And among all those things, especially having sexual relationship. Because that is loving relationship, really. That is one relationship we call loving relationship. But if there is no God between you and your partner, that is not loving relationship, really. Because there is no love. There is no God, there is no love. So that is not loving relationship, isn't it? So I mean, I confess now I'm actually single, so it might feel a little bit funny that I'm talking about a topic like this. But hey, Apostle Paul was single, and yet he talked about marriage and love and singleness. And Jesus was single, and he talked about marriage and being single. So yeah, I guess I can say, at least I can say something about that as well. So it doesn't matter whether you stay as single or having a loving relationship with someone, or really marriage or whatever. What matters is you really need to have God in your relationship. Only then that relationship can be as it should be. When God first created Adam and Eve, I truly believe like I said, I think Adam and Eve had sexual relationship before they ate that fruit. So when they had sexual relationship before then, it would probably was very different from what they felt after their fall. Because before their sin, there was this act, but not just that act, there was also God. So I guess really there was this feeling of fullness, the feeling of full, not just becoming one in body, but becoming one in their spirit as well. Probably that's why in English we say the true love partner as soulmate, isn't it? Because we human, in our instinct, maybe we remember this, that we probably in our instinct we remember there was something more in this relationship, not just this union in body, but there was something more. That's why we call this person as soulmate and keeps finding keeps finding or searching for my true soulmate. Because in our instinct we are looking for that fullness, feeling of fullness. We want to feel that again, but we can never have that fullness without God. So whether you're single or married, well, if you're single, I and singleness is not really a bad thing. I mean, for example, in my case, I am really enjoying it. I'm really satisfying for this. So if you're, and Apostle Paul said, right, if you're single, don't try to get married. Just be content. Be content with where you are. And it goes to the same for the married people as well. But the important thing is, whether you are single or married, whether no matter what you do in your daily lives, we always need to be with God. We always need to act with God. As long as we do that, as long as we walk with Him, we are in Him, then the purpose of our life is fulfilled. That is what our life is as should be, as it should be, really. So I do hope no matter where you are, no matter what you do, you always stay in God, and you always do everything with love, with God. May God bless you. Amen.